You're listening to the Valley Current.
Hey, Greg. How you doing?
Hello.
I think we may have met years ago, Greg. You look really familiar.
No kidding.
You do. You look really familiar. I don't know if you went to any of the schools I went to, or maybe we ran into each other in court down in Los Angeles or somewhere else.
Wow, that's really cool.
So what's happening in your life during the period of this pandemic?
Well, there's been a few good things, which what I like to focus on. I had time to confront with my wife that, she's been busy traveling around the country with her job. I've been busy with mine. And we just confronted the fact that we needed to connect with each other. So that was really good.
Nice.
The second thing was I've been working on a book for 2 decades about persuasion, just writing a lot of different things about persuasion.
Okay.
And I finally started then just cracking, the first volume, the 20 Principles of Persuasion. And that has been so rewarding. It's just been amazing. Loved working on that.
You get up at a certain time in the morning and just dedicate a couple of hours to it?
Yes. I use my first morning time when I arrive at the office. And my commitment is to go for an hour. And then sometimes it's, goes for 2 or 3 or 4. But
Right. And do you dictate it, or do you type it, or yellow pad, or?
Yeah, type. I learned 2 good things in high school. One of them was typing. So
Me too. I say that to people all the time. It was the best class I ever took in high school. It was typing. They say, really? I say, yeah. I mean, I dictate a lot of stuff, but I say, man, if you want to get something done, then type it yourself and type it quickly. And I think that's accurate. And it was the best class. And I remember taking the class and people thought I was crazy. I said, no, are you kidding me? Computers are around the corner. I mean, I could see that coming, and I'm, an old fart, relatively speaking.
How old are you?
I'm in my 60s now. So I like to say I feel like I'm in my 50s, but my wife says, no, she's in her 50s. She's a total athlete. The good news of what's happened to me during this whole period is I've used my bicycle, and there's no one on the Stanford campus, and my house is right diagonally through the Stanford farm. So I cut through the Stanford campus, and it's a 7-mile run to downtown Palo Alto. So I put in about 15 miles round trip. And so I'm trying to this is a big picture, because I'm trying to get to my high school weight. So I've got a picture here. I got to show you this picture. I have to do it in kind of a goofy way because I don't have it on my screen here that I could share it with you. But I've got a picture of what I look like when I was in high school. You're going to show you this picture and you say, man, Jack, where did all your hair go? So if I show you that picture, I don't know if you could see that.
I can see that, and I'm quite confident that's not you.
That is me. That is me getting my first bank account in UCLA, after college. So I guess I was in my 20s. I was getting my first California bank account at a bank that, of course, went broke. And that's the picture on the card that they gave, because they were giving up on doing passbooks. And that's what I look like. That's the picture right there of what I look like. I'm trying to get back. My BMI at the time was something like, body mass index was something like 12. I'm trying to get back to that body mass index. So my wife says, if you can do it, God bless you, go for it. She's, of course, got a body mass index of about 8. I mean, she's totally an athlete. So I'm trying to emulate her.
That's nice. That's super
good thing. It's an excellent thing. So tell me, how did you get interested in persuasion? Because a lot of people, they don't really even understand that there's a notion of what it means to persuade a judge or jury. They think somehow you can just recite the law and snap your fingers. Somehow that's going to do it for a judge or a jury. They don't get ethos. They don't get any of the Greek principles that are out there that I know you're studying, because you sent me a version of an article that you did, which I assume is becoming the book, right?
Yes, that's one of the chapters. It's one of the 20 principles. So there'll be 20 chapters like that one.
Okay.
I got interested. That's interesting. I was a young lawyer, and I became a lawyer. I dropped out of college, and then I went back and became a lawyer because I really wanted to be a trial lawyer. I mean, I was born to be a trial lawyer. It's just inside of me, right?
Were you watching Perry Mason as a kid, as I was, for a period of time on a black and white TV?
Yep.
Were you watching things like, shows that had lawyers in it, other shows that had sort of movies that had lawyers, that sort of thing?
Yes. And one of my early boyhood heroes was F. Lee Bailey. He was on the Mike Douglas show, and he had a new book out, and I read his books. And in fact, when I was in college, he was trying the Patty Hearst case in California.
Right.
And he came and did a speaking gig, and I showed up there in my T-shirt, my shorts, with a copy of his book, and he came out after he'd done his little speech, and I said, Mr. Bailey, will you sign this for me? And he turned around and said, oh, yeah. Oh, it's nice to know this has gotten out west, and he signed it. I still have it. Yeah.
But didn't he file for bankruptcy recently? I read something that said the arc of his career really went south, right?
Yeah.
I mean, It's unbelievable that you see these guys, because even Melvin Belli, I've been having Robert Leaf on my podcast. And Robert Leaf, of course, is the founding partner of Leaf, Cabraser, Hyman and Bernstein, big class action firm, made billions. I mean, they've made billions from even some of their recent cases. They've done so well. Mm-hmm. And he talks about how Melvin Belli died broke. Melvin Belli, the king of torts, the guy who could try any case anywhere at any time on any issue, basically died broke. And you say to yourself, how does that happen to these people?
I've looked at that, and I haven't done an actual study, but I've seen two big factors. Number one, and this is maybe not Belli, but number one is trial lawyers get used to being able to move around fluidly in the world and with the truth, and they often cross the line and wind up in jail. A lot of the best trial lawyers.
Like Larac, like that guy who's the security guy, Larac. I guess, he did too. Yeah.
What was Clarence Darrow? I mean, he definitely bribed a jury. The evidence is overwhelming. But so there's that. The second thing is, as part of the whole process of whatever, the ego, they end up going through a lot of wives, and that eats up a lot of money.
Well, that's funny, because I think it is true that Bob Leaf is doing quite well, but I think he might be on wife number 7 or maybe wife number 6. And I can't imagine how many girlfriends in between. I mean, he's funny. He laughs about it. He says, I always leave money on the table. And I think he was implying when he does his negotiations with his ex-wife, he leaves a lot of money on the table. So that is funny. I mean, I think there is some truth, because Bella, I think, was married 6 or 7 times as well.
Yeah.
And I have a friend, by the way, who bought Belli's sailing yacht. And apparently it was sold in a bankruptcy and made its way to some owner in Florida, who then decided it needed too much work to be fixed. So he sold it yet again. So you decided pretty early on, it sounds like. Did you have a father or a grandfather that was a lawyer as well? No family members?
Nothing. No, this was it. Literally, I knew it from the time that I could think, 3 years old. I knew that this is what I needed to do. It's two things. There's a deep sense of justice. I really don't like injustice.
Okay.
And I really like, getting the bad guy. And the second thing is cross-examination. I, at a deep level, like the process of asking somebody questions. I can only use my words, and they know exactly what I want, and they don't want to tell me, and yet I have to get those words out of them. I love that. But
you've heard the 10 commandments of cross-examination by Judge Irving Younger, and you know that most people do it badly most of the time. And he says all young lawyers do it badly all the time. Most lawyers do it badly most of the time. And very few people do it at all well most of the time.
When I was in law school, he came and gave his talk on the 10 Commandments. Yeah. Now, it's interesting. The other thing about persuasion that I love. It's, as you can appreciate, it's such an important craft because just take litigation alone. I mean, lawyers are paid thousands of dollars an hour. They're paid millions in fees. So a lot is at stake. So it's high stakes, right?
Yes.
And that's just litigation. Then the whole branch persuasion goes down to other things, but just take litigation. When I was in law school, that was really the height of learning about cross-examination was Younger's 10 Commandments. I mean,
yes.
But just think about when poker went through its explosion with Hold'em, right? There are 1,000 books on Hold'em, all of which are more sophisticated than the entire collection of all wisdom on forensic persuasion.
Yes, I think you could put it on one bookshelf. I think that he did. I think that Irving Younger had said there's like 30 books max that you should read on this subject. Maybe there's 50 now. But by and large, it is an understudied topic. And the Greeks are probably amazed that we have not evolved from everything that they laid the foundation for.
Yeah, there was essentially, in my study of it, no evolution, no growth from 500 BC until early 1980s. It was really the early 1980s that actual progress started to be made, and there's been some progress since then. And more recently, and it's mostly the plaintiff's personal injury bar. They've done a lot of research, a lot of study, a lot of writing. They've made a lot of progress.
Okay, so you think the plaintiff's personal injury bar has kind of really figured out what gets jurors to be motivated, and they have
they figured out a lot of things. It's like one step at a time, right? But they've got a whole set of, and they've got some great thinkers, some great authors, some great writers who've actually captured some of the wisdom from psychological science.
Okay.
And they've got it into some books, and they've made progress, and they'll do tests with mock juries, so that they've actually made some progress, and that's what I'm trying to build on, trying to take that and go further.
Right, but how did you drop out from college and then make it into Harvard Law School? Because that's a pretty good law school to get into after dropping out from college. How do you do that? How do you pull that off? You're persuasive.
Well, part of the answer was that, still true today, all the big law schools, all the elite institutions, you're not competing with everybody. So if I happened to be a Jew who went to Beverly Hills High School at that time, I was competing with, it's a very tough crowd.
Right.
Harvard is probably still true today, but I knew at the time they would compartmentalize down to, it wasn't even that they wanted, say, I'll just make up numbers, I don't know. They didn't just want 15% Latinos. They wanted the best person from Colombian heritage, the best person from Venezuelan heritage.
Yes.
So I wasn't competing with anybody. When I applied, I was living in a farm area at that time from a small college, and I was a college dropout who was a business person. So that's a very kind of specialized pool that I was competing with. And that made a big difference.
So when you think about it, you must have gone back to college to finish to get into Harvard. They wouldn't accept you without a college degree, right?
Yeah, it was funny. My first thought was, because at that point, when I dropped out of college, within 6 months, I realized, why go to college? I don't need college. I mean, I was doing all kinds of different business things. And then I said, okay, I have to be a lawyer. So my first thought was, I'll forge a degree, forge a plaque on the wall.
No, you can't think that way and go to law school.
That's exactly what went through my mind, right? And then I realized, I could get away with it for a while, but I'm eventually going to get caught. It's not going to be good. And so then it was, what do I do? And I looked at, there's these statutes in certain states, and I was in Washington State at the time, and you can do what's called reading law, like Lincoln did.
Right. You can do it in California too.
Yep.
Although very few people do it.
Yeah. Turned out that was a 5-year process. And so then I realized, if I start college next week, because this was the spring, right? And I go to summer school and I take a correspondence school course, I'll have just enough credits. I can graduate in a year and a third. I get this whole thing done in 4 1/3 years.
Okay, so you really wanted to accelerate. You wanted to get into the courtroom, it sounds like.
That's all I wanted. I had no concept that I was going to go to a great law school at the time. I mean, it was just about, just going to get a law degree and hang up a shingle.
But did you say to yourself, well, do I need to go to Harvard? Because Harvard's pretty expensive. I mean, and maybe you got a scholarship or something, but Harvard's not cheap, right?
It's interesting. Of course, it was much cheaper back then, $8,000 a year.
I know my law school at UCLA was something like $1,200 a year. And I remember thinking, well, I could get it down to like $800 if I became a resident, because I came here from New York and I said, I'd have to wait a while to become a resident. Now I'll pay the $1,200 and then I'll become a resident and then it'll go down to $800. So I think the total law school investment with books, room and board and everything else was like under $10,000. I mean, It was a great investment. I sold my 911S Porsche to have enough money. I had brand new because I worked as a tractor trailer driver in New York while in college to make, I had a class 1 license in New York. I knew how to drive everything. I could tell you about, I thought I was going to be a race car driver when I started. I could tell you a long story, but I got a class 1 license as the youngest class 1 driver in New York State when I was 18 and a half years old. And the old man who gave me the exam, who was in his 60s, who had driven for like 50 years, said, why are you doing this? Are you crazy? You don't want to end up like me? And I said, are you kidding me? This is the romance of being a long distance driver. He said, that's all bullshit, man. Okay, I'm going to give you the exam, but I'm not going to talk you out of it. You look like you're competent. Let's do it. And man, we drove throughout Manhattan. They take you through a real busy street. It's an interesting process how you get a class 1 license. I could tell you over lunch if we ever have lunch together in this time. But I ended up in law school in a really weird way, which is my roommate wanted to become a lawyer. And he said, I'm going to take this exam. It's called the LSAT. Would you study with me? Because I think you'd be good. And if you got a high enough score, we could go together. And I said, Peter, I have no interest in being a lawyer. I have interest in like being a race car driver. And he said, no. And I was saving my money to buy a 911S Porsche, which at the time was like the fastest thing on wheels. And he said, don't do that, save your money. But I spent the money on that. And then I had no more money left because I spent so much on the car, which is itself a story. And he said to me, well, I'm going to pay $500 at the time. $500 was a lot of money back then. He said, I'm going to take this Kaplan course. I said, I'm just going to buy some old outlines. You take the course. I'll take the exam with you. And I got a really high score. He got an okay score. But he said, you got to go. My score's not high enough. And that's how I ended up in law school. That's a true story. He became a banker and probably did quite well, as it turned out.
It's amazing. Now, do you still have an interest in racing? Do you do some racing?
Yes, I still have an interest in racing. And I'll tell you, the hottest car that's out there is what I have, which is a Tesla all-wheel drive S model with the prepaid electricity. So you can go anywhere and not pay a dime for electricity.
Yeah, I have an S, the fastest one, but I have a Tesla S too. And I love driving it. It's fun to drive.
That car is like a race car. The only thing faster is I got an electric motorcycle. It will go, an electric motorcycle will go actually twice as fast as that car from 0 to 100. And you literally scare yourself. You scare yourself on that. So yeah, I try to be careful, but I think there's a certain sort of adrenaline flow that you get in a cross-examination that you live to get. And the problem is that there are only a few of us left that actually relish going to trial, want to go to trial. Most lawyers you see, big law lawyers, I think, are pretty much doing a spreadsheet calculation of what is it going to cost, MBA kind of analysis. I mean, I know how they think. And, even Bob Leaf is like, why would you go to trial if you can kind of get a settlement that's going to work? Let's just get a settlement that's going to work and move on. And he's got a good rationale for it, but it's a different flavor than probably when he was clerking with Belli and when he became a partner of Belli, when things kind of changed to, hey, we're going to try a case, get ready to try the case. And he would laugh and say, Belli would not even know what the next case was. He'd be briefed the night before. And he loved it because it was the adrenaline flow of, man, I'm learning this stuff on the fly. So you tell some good stories. So where when you graduated from Harvard, did you hang a shingle or did you start somewhere else?
I clerked for 2 years and then started at a regional firm in LA called Mitchell, Silverberg and Knupp.
Oh, I know them. Yeah, I know them. Sure.
Still around. And then after a year and a half, I moved to Kay Scholler, which had a big an LA office they were starting up. It was going to be really exciting. And I was there about 5 years, became a partner. And after 8 months as a partner, I left and went out with no clients and no prospect of getting any clients.
With your current group?
No, it was just me. It was just me.
Just you, okay. Because Kay Scholl, those are all big law firms. I mean, even Mitchell Silberg was like a big entertainment firm the way we thought of it years ago, right? I thought of it years ago. But you stayed in Los Angeles, right?
Yeah.
You've always stayed in Los Angeles, never thought of leaving, never said, like I left Los Angeles saying the air quality back then, we're talking 1970s, air quality was really down. I was a big runner still. I was a big bicycle rider. I'm trying to get all that back, decades later, of course. But, I wanted to come to some place that had kind of decent air, so I came to Northern California. I think the air's improved a lot, though, in Los Angeles lately, right?
Yeah, it's amazing. I'll put it this way. When I was a kid, you watch the Johnny Carson show, he'd always have a smog joke.
Right, right.
Smog was everywhere. But my kids, they don't even know the word smog. It's essentially not a part of the situation anymore. It's just
probably improved. It's probably improved further with less traffic there as a result of the quarantine, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And what do? Do you go to the office at all, or do you just work from home now?
I'm mostly in the office because I'm so much more efficient there. And in fact, I was going to talk to you today from the office, but I just had to run an errand, so came home. But I'm much more efficient there, and it's super quiet and safe because there's only we're paying for a lot of real estate, and it's mostly empty.
Well, how do you feel about that? I mean, we own our own building. We own our own commercial building here in downtown Palo Alto. So we're like, hey, we got to be in our own building because it's our building. It's our identity. It's who we are. But I mean, how do you feel? Because I often wonder, does it make sense to not just go virtual, given the way we are, the way things are going? I mean, there are people who are coming in, but we all have our own offices, so everyone feels safe. But I'm just kind of curious, when you look at it, when you're paying, when you're paying a lease and you're not building your own building, or you're not building equity in your own building, it must at some point irk you, right? That you're paying for all this space and no one really uses it.
Yep, it does. And the one thing that's changed, we actually are renewing our lease right now. We've been in the same place for a long time, and every time our lease comes up for renewal, a recession starts. So we always get a good rate.
Well, that's good, because you guys are in Santa Monica, right?
Right.
You're not far from the beach. You guys have a good location. I used to bike ride from West LA down Wilshire to Santa Monica and then up to Redondo Beach, or as far up as it would go, Marina del Rey, and then back as a way to just get exercise while listening to my notes about the law classes in my Walkman. And
the Walkman.
People would be like, how do you get the exercise in? Why aren't you reading the cases? I said, man, I dictate this stuff and I listen as I ride the bike. I still do that for my own opening statements. I dictate the opening statements and I listen to it on my bicycle a few times. I say, that's way too wordy. That's way too verbose. Got to cut most of the words out of this. We got to get to the heart of it a lot faster. When you listen to yourself, it can be painful, but a very great way to improve yourself, I think, over time.
Yeah. The Walkman, I haven't thought about that in a long time. That was amazing technology at the time.
It's amazing technology, but the fact that you can have an iPhone with like supercomputer power and you can dictate things and just listen to them with earbuds in, I think it's like an amazing invention. It's probably better than the Swiss Army knife in terms of what you can do, relatively speaking.
Sure.
So you hung a shingle out, you went out on your own, and how did you get people to know who you were? How did you figure out how to get clients?
Well, at first, the very first client was somebody who had a terrible case and everybody else turned it down, and he found his way to me. And so it was stuff like that. It was like those clients that nobody wanted.
Okay.
And so, and then eventually, word of mouth.
That's the most powerful sales force out there is people just talk about you, right? Or you might be lucky enough to kind of get your name in the newspaper, but I tend to think it's more personal. I think it's more one-on-one, that sort of thing.
Yeah. We're having to do some of both because we realize that there's a lot of people in this country that would like to know about us and have never heard of us because we really maintained a super low profile. Even when we'd have major victories, we never advertised them. We never sought out press.
Right.
And so now we're going through the process of just hardcore marketing. Again, there's just more people that just need to know about us.
Well, I think you get people like me to actually read the book that you sent, because you sent, just to put it on here, you sent this beautiful book by like FedEx or DHL or UPS or some overnight thing, and people were like, "What is this?" And I said, it's lawyer marketing. And they said, "Really, a book, not a website?" I said, "This is old school, man. They're doing old school. This is what you did 30 years ago. There was no way to do a website 30 years ago." They're like, "Are people going to read the book?" I said, "People like me will read the book and will actually call them up," because someone said, "Well, there's not even an email on the cover of the book. There's not even a phone number on the cover of the book." I said, "This is old school. You got to find that information out. They're just giving you some information about themselves." And they were laughing. They were saying, "You're probably the only one reading the book." I said, "No, they're going to reach old school people that probably will refer some cases to them." And I immediately started thinking about, hey, these guys look good. I'm going to maybe think about doing a joint venture or something with them, because I see a lot of opportunities where you say, hey, where am I going to get some extra talent to help? And that book worked. I think it was very persuasive. It was very well done. And your article was very well done.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So let me do this, Greg, because I got to make another call. We're at 6 o'clock. I am going to take this little thing we did and send it to you to look at and your partner to look at. And maybe we attach, if you agree, we put it on my Valley Current podcast with your book in some sort of PDF and with your article. And then you guys could use it with your clients and say, hey, Jack Russo did this interview. They might actually say, oh, I know Jack Russo. I've been around for 40 years, or not. I mean, there are some people still at UCI. In fact, I got an email from them saying, we want you on some committee to help us raise money for the law school. I was kind of laughing, saying, yeah, that's typical. We're finding that people are not responding to our ads for money. I mean, who's been to the law school and how long it's closed, right? I mean, you got to wonder. So I'll send this to you guys, and then maybe we could delve into some of your topics of persuasion as something you store for use in your own sort of promotion down the road for your book, because I'll be one of the first buyers of probably 50 copies of your books to give out to all of our people here.
Yeah. Hey, that's a fun idea, because some of the early topics I'm working on are some of the most important. And it's fun I'm actually just now sending out drafts to people to get comments and to get,
Oh, send me a draft. I know all the literature on this, Greg. You'd be surprised that I know stuff that a lot of people don't realize that I know based on really detailed study in my free time, quote unquote, free time, very limited free. My wife's like, why are you reading this stuff? Like, why are you reading this stuff about persuasion? You've been doing it for 40 years. And I say, there's always a nugget from a new angle. Sometimes I think I've listened to the Irving Younger tapes like 50 times. And I occasionally listen with her, and I've got the electronic version in the Tesla, and she says, man, that guy was great. He was so funny. It was like stand-up comedy. It was just too funny. I'm going to show you my the bookshelf. These are some sources that I'm using for the first chapter. You'll just get a sense of this. Oh, that's good. Yeah, I have all those books. I have most of those books. Yep. Yeah. Those are great. And I think that there is a lot more to be said, because we have now a whole branch of economics that are looking at the way and people make decisions that are not purely rational. This whole area of behavioral economics, is starting to have an impact on how lawyers think and how lawyers operate and what they think is important. Like, I think a jury that's in their 20s is completely different than a jury that's in their 40s. And a jury in their 60s is completely different from a jury in their 40s. And
like no time in history, we've never seen such a disparity in the generations.
Yes, it's unbelievable. And you must know that with your kids. And I know that with my grandkids. And, you know, it's just an amazing time. So, Greg, I'm going to hope we continue this at some level. As you have time, I'll send you some suggestions. I send you and your partners a couple of funny things that I thought you'd get a kick out of. And I hope we can continue this and build on it to some degree, because I think there's a lot to talk about.
Really enjoyed it, and look forward to seeing you in Palo Alto one day soon.
Absolutely. You're invited anytime. We'll have lunch or dinner together or both. All right. You take care.
All right, thanks.
Tune in next time on the Valley Current.